Now, Dad wanted me to be a teacher, but I didn't want to be following his footsteps. I want some freedom, really.
My father used to speak English to me, and I love the language. I just love that language. So when I was 18, instead of going to Michigan and take up the scholarship in Michigan, I decided to come to England.
That there comes a time that we need to make a decision whether we're carrying on or we want to finish, and then we go our separate ways, and then it was the decision that I decided to come over here.
And England was exactly the way I love it. I love the scenery, and I love the people.
Back, I even remember the Hung Lao days before my dad opened up his first restaurant, and we were there. I mean, my Oilen still goes on about that when my sister was really little, that my sister would live in a drawer, literally live in a drawer, because mum and dad had to work.
In China, most of the people are just Chinese, because we don't have this kind of good combination of people from different countries, different cultural backgrounds.
The reason being is, I think it's the population is getting higher and higher there. We couldn't even, at the weekend, we didn't even want to go out because it's so packed.
But when you move into Manchester, it's fine. It's just like Hong Kong. But when you move into a smaller village, it's very different.
So wanting freedom, wanting to fly, wanting to leave home, to explore, that's why I came to England. And I've never regretted it.
I was a little bit shy when I first came here, because you can imagine, people are all from different countries and we speak different languages.
India and Egypt, I'm not going. I stayed about the big 5 pound note. I just take that 5 pound note, come the boat.
England to Great Britain at that time has been our mother country because we were one of the British colony.
We used to work in Northampton, but we all got Northampton, Coventry, Peterborough, all around the area. And then you come to Leicester. Leicester's all right, so come to Leicester.
Then in the late 60s and early 70s, a lot of young men and women were encouraged to come across to Great Britain to train as a nurse, because during that time, the nursing hospitals and care homes were very, very short of nurses.
And I work in a hospital for the elderly people, and I work in quite a few homes. But it's very hard work because at the end of the day, not many Chinese nurses at that time in the Leicestershire.
We were given a lot of encouragement to come to England, really.
And when people say to me, Maureen, you can never do that, I do it.
And I think when I came here as a child, the weather was a lot of mysteries, cold.
No, it was really cold, very cold. And it was freezing in the morning, frost. It was all white, the trees was white, the road was all white. In the freezing cold, I had 2 coats on, I'm still freezing.
And when I sit on the roof, it made me jump. Because I sit so cold.
First day when I got to England, it's like a motorway. What's that?
Saturday, after you finish work, right, all the shops, the shopping center, they close about 5, 6 o'clock, And then Sunday, complete close, empty, right? And not like now, right? At least you got nightlife.
Dad come here and then he said, "Oh, I can't believe how green this country is." Because in China, everywhere was like with buildings. And I started drinking more English tea and coffee. I'm starting to have my afternoon what we call sam dim sum, which is 3:15. People tell me, can I meet you at tea time? I feel like, tea time, 3:15. So I'm starting to wait for my friends. I'm waiting her there. And I'm wondering, where is she? Because at the time we don't have, mobile phone to call each other. So I just wait there for 4 hours. And then I feel like, should I go or stay there? But the good thing is I have my book, so I stand there and reading my book. Wait there for almost 4 hours, then she arrived. So tea time means the dinner time. And I have no idea about that.
Having lots of tea breaks, I know. Sitting around in a pantry area, and it's like, But you do get to know about their personal life as well. You know, in Hong Kong you just don't. You just head down and work. But here you do actually chat to people. You know, get to know about more people, and then yeah, I think the bond is stronger here.
And I find that England is different but very loving country.
There are a lot more care, and there's more. I would say there's more personal touch as well, because they're, you know, not just talking about coursework, and they come to you, you know, really from inside.
Oh yes, one of my study life story is when I first arrived here, I was usually a good student, and then my first assignment, I only got 25. I have no idea what's wrong with it. Why I just got 25? So I find a place and then starting to cry. And everybody walk past me, asking me, say, "Are you okay? Is everything all right?" So people are so care about your feelings.
It's not always just work. You know, you got to build up that relationship with people.
I think one thing is that you know, in China, family is really important, because even when children grew up or they get married, they still sometimes they still live with their parents.
I fell in love with a beautiful woman. Do you want to know her name? No, I'm not telling you. I'm lying. No, I'm not telling you. If not, she will kick me. We got married, and then she come to Leicester, and then live next to my family. You know, the brother, sister, in-law. I said, oh dear.
In England, if you get married, it seems like you always live separately from your parents. But in China, actually, you know, people get married, they get their own children, and they still live with their parents, and it's like a bigger family. So this kind of connection will never lose.
In China, everything being collective. Even in your family, you are in a big family. You should lead for them. Everything you do is for the goodness of your family.
I can tell people I live in Leicester. Yeah, still Hong Kong is it's home, and I think I can still, you know, when people ask me, I will tell them I come from Leicester, and yeah, I live here.
Our culture is to start with survival. When you go anywhere, as long as you can make a living, or better living, living, and you're happy.
It's more like a fact of life, isn't it?
Yeah, we don't make trouble with anybody. I don't know whether you notice, you know, the Chinese, they don't always stand on the back. They're
quite insular though, aren't they? They stay within their own group.
Yeah.
They don't really.
We don't go to fight for the right.
I will step in by saying that the Chinese race, we as a race are not very forefront in politics or in making ourselves in the limelight. We are not very good at that.
The reason why I'm helping the Chinese is I can understand how they go through. Because they've been here all their life. When they came here young with their husband, their English is not amazing. They can't even understand a word. They give birth to their children and they work together with their husband. And then they never come. A lot of people say, how come those Chinese people been here all this year and can't speak English? Because all their life is 4 walls in the kitchen.
We come and give you a nice meal because you're hungry, but they withstand a lot of what they call verbal abuse and all this and that.
Thankfully, I've never had to go through the whole racism thing as far as an adult. I think as a child, wait there a second, I think as a child, it was worse back in the 70s and 80s, and I know for a fact that my mum had to go through a lot more racism than my dad did because she married a Chinaman.
Until I go to a smaller village, and then when I go into the pub, everybody gone silent. And then I didn't understand that. I was 20 odd then. I didn't understand that. Until one day it clicked. And I was very naughty, so I'm very loud standing in the middle of the pub. I said, I did have a bath, you know. And I think my English is better than yours. So you guys can talk to me. That's how it all started. But I never take it seriously from my heart.
Every Friday night there's fighting.
What, at the restaurant?
Every Friday night.
Was that just because of the locals eating food, getting drunk and...
Right.
Oh right, yeah. Well, I've heard these stories actually. We used to get people coming in for food, and then instead of paying the bill, they used to just scarper.
I think
so I used to have a team of Chinese people with choppers chasing them on the London road. So, yeah. So.
At the end of the day, I don't blame people for being prejudiced and racist, because I will be the same. If I put, sometimes it hurts so much, but I turn it round. I learn to learn. If I'm in their shoes, maybe I'm worse.
We call him Brother Brave because he was the baby of the family, and they were front of house. So, you know, I don't know how old he was, a 10-year-old gok, and he would open the door and he'd greet the customers as they came in, you know, and then sort of like, you know, and then Oilen would be like, you know, behind the bar serving whatever drinks and stuff, and then I was either in the kitchen washing up or helping out in the kitchen, and I suppose that's where it all came from.
I mean, of course, the food is very different. It's British food and Chinese food, you know.
So it's things like, you know, rice is the main staple we have. And then, you know, I don't know how my, you know, two men in the family seems to have like picked these things up, and they like their rice.
But in China, we don't need to care about cooking food. But in here, we have to go to market and buy food for ourselves. I have to go to the market, and Leicester have such a nice open market. At that time in my life, it's the first time I know there was a pan and a bowl, you know, just like a whole bowl of fruits or vegetables sell for £1. And sometimes they discount it to 40 pence at the end of the market time.
Also, we share some British desserts. So, you know, food is always the best way to share cultural stuff.
Make sure they're holding their chopsticks right. It's kind of funny because from the way how we hold our chopsticks, it basically, you know, tell people, you know, how your family upbringing is. So it is, you know, sometimes you think it's a small thing, but then it looks like to us Chinese, it means a lot. So from the way they hold it, if they're holding it properly, you know, with the right fingers in the right place, and that they don't drop the food on the table, they're not, you know, stretching their arms out when they're eating. All these little things like the manners and the kind of traditions we have, really.
Because we used to have a roast sucking pig on my birthday every year. And I said, why can't we have that on New Year Day? He said, first day of the New Year. She said, no, that day, give the world a break. Don't kill anything. And when I was younger, I said, you don't kill, somebody will. But that's when you were young. That's why we all vegetarian, a very heavy vegan and vegetarian as well. That's the reason why I respect the vegan people and I respect the vegetarian. But when you were younger, you don't understand this. The day before New Year, we call it like a clean out day. You know, we clean every dirt out, all the bad luck's gone out, and then we make sure the whole house wiped down. I still do it now. I don't know whether I believe it or not, but I still, just to make me feel better. And then we wash our hair with leaves, lime leaves. To wash all the dirt, not the dirt, it's dirty dirt. You know, all the bad luck, wash it off on the New Year Eve. And then after 12 o'clock, we have new clothes on, everything new. The house will be immaculately clean.
But Hong Kong is very westernized now. And then when I go back, I still go back to the old Hong Kong. All the streets are the same, but all the buildings are gone. They're all skyscrapers everywhere, and all the villages is now towns now in Hong Kong. It's changed a lot.
It is, you know, a lot to juggle when it comes to, you know, the way how we live in Hong Kong and in here. But in here, you know, we sort of like, you know, having a better way to manage the time. When the office says you finish at 4:30, you finish straight away. You don't have a lot of overtimes, and then, you know, that's how, you know, people can have time to manage family life and other things. So, and, you know, this is something that I think I'm enjoying.
Sometimes it, you know, when let's say even when you go into a building, when you open a door or something, they would just open the door and let go and carry on. They wouldn't even bother to look back and say who's behind you. You hold the door for someone. But here, obviously, something that I find is that people are very polite. Obviously, they would open the door and let everyone go through, and then they go after that. And a lot of things like that, I don't know, because a lot of gentlemen and stuff in the UK in the past, that's with the cap on, with the hat on. And I think that this kind of culture, it's something that I think people should learn.
Even though I've been brought up with some of the traditions that my dad's been able to pass on, there's going to be things that even my dad don't know. And as the older generations are getting elder, and they are dying, you know, so we need to try and get all of this into one place now, where we can go and actually try and find out about what was going on back in Hong Kong and China.
From 70 onward, they just say, how long have I got?
Did you say that we're losing tradition then?
Well, eventually it will be, if we don't have a kind of place for them to go. I mean, it's all right to go to a casino, but that's a different side of things, isn't it?
They've got nowhere to go or nobody to call if they need translation, they need help to go to hospital.
Having lived here for like, on and off 20 years, it's like thinking, when I first started, I don't really have a lot of connection like with the Chinese communities because, my husband is Chinese and when I go to work, most of my colleagues, they're from different, parts of England. And then that kind of connection is not really there, with the Chinese community. But when my boy came, it sort of bring about the changes because he's my next generation and it's kind of thinking, me being a Chinese here and he is like half Chinese and I have to make sure he understands, what Chinese means to him.
But the younger generation, they really learn. I said to my children once, I say you immigrate to India, you learn the language first before you even stuck yourself anywhere else.
They ask parents to keep kids at home to speak their own language. My mother tongue, for example, my mother tongue language. And then, so I haven't taught my daughter any, English. She learned English when she go to nursery.
It's funny because when I put, Peppa Pig on, I put a Peppa Pig on Chinese version for her to look at it. I mean, I do want her to learn a little bit of my language, my mother tongue.
I think in the generation of my dad was completely different in the sense that they came over here not being able to speak the language. Therefore, they've always gone to one another. And we're only the first generation after this generation. It's completely changed again. And again, they're coming over here on their own now.
For the older generation, the English is not that, they don't communicate that easy. And the youngsters are all right, but they don't know any Chinese custom.
Since we are in a foreign country, in the UK, I think it's good to accept other cultures. So sometimes if all the people from China get together, they will, always just stay together and say like, okay, I don't want to meet other people. So I think that's really bad. Then there's no point for us to move here.
With Facebook now, especially, I've managed to find all my friends. And I go to Hong Kong to see them as well.
I think the internet definitely helps because, for young people, they got like amazing social media.
People can go on to Google and other places to search around, places, what people do there and different cultures and all that. But I do think at the same time it brings people together.
We all recognize the importance of a community center, really, especially for the elderly who cannot speak much English, really. They feel that they are more relaxed when they have their own people around them. We give a lot of support when Leicester's Community Centre was up and running at Belgrave Gate. We were there to come and ask them how they are. Just by talking, just by listening and talking, you find that the elderly people or the middle-aged people, they feel happy.
I think the older generation prefer staying with people who are from same country, from same cultural background, just because they can't access the internet too much. So they just have very limited option because they only know Chinese culture. So it could be very hard for them to accept Western culture.
I think for our child in the future, I think finding a Chinese cultural centre or community centre will be quite important, I think, because for her to meet some friends from where I'm come from or from China, it will help her to understand more, in the future about oh, this is the place where daddy's come from.
I'm glad I've been through a very difficult year when I first arrived here because it changed all the definitions. So I tell my daughter that there's no limits of it. Because when I was born in China, you are asked to be always listen to your parents. We call that 听话, which means you you shouldn't break the rules. You should obey all the rules we give it to you.
But the way I teach people here, I mean, from what I observe is, having that freedom is so important for a younger one.
Maybe the traditions aren't being passed on sometimes because you're so used to organising it, you just organise it and we just turn up and do it. So there's no like education there apart from monkey see, monkey do. So therefore I turn up, you get told to do something and you do it, but I don't actually understand.
But again, you've got to be to somebody to tell you to know what's happening, isn't it?
Yeah. So again, maybe some bit more involvement with the organising of it.
I would say, in some way the Chinese culture is very straight, but that's for a reason, obviously. But I think combining the Western culture, it morphed into a very special things that I can pass on to my daughter, and just to let her know, okay, this is seeing things from a different perspective.